Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sichot HaRan 185. Thank you for joining. So this shiur is going to be on a few different topics, and Mir Hashem will come out with some really good learning today. Okay, so I'm just going to dive right in. Okay, Sichot HaRan 185. The Rebbe said that he knew the root of every Jewish soul. At first he said that he knew them in the written Torah, but not in the oral Torah. He later said that he knew the root of each Jewish soul in the oral Torah as well. So Rebbe Nachman saying that he knew the root of every single Jewish soul. By looking at you, he could tell the root of your soul. And he could do that through the written Torah, and then later he says he even knew how to do it through the oral Torah. So Rebbe Nachman has a few Torahs about this, and one of them he says that basically every single root soul, every Jewish person's root soul lines up with the letter in the Torah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah, and there are 600,000 root souls. I know there are more Jews than 600,000, but we're talking about the root soul. So like there's the root, and then there's the branches, and we kind of have a lot of different stuff going on in us. But that's the gist of it. Rebbe Nachman says in a different place, in a different Torah also, that if you want to, he even says, like, in fact, if you want to work on, like, really connected to your Torah learning, then you have to learn, you can't speak Lashon Hara. You can't speak bad about any Jew. Because when you speak bad about a Jew, their soul is connected to a letter in the Torah. And basically you mess up that letter in the Torah, and that's why you're not connecting to your Torah learning. It's very interesting. Okay, I'm going to read on a bit in Sichot HaRan 185. The Rebbe knew how to provide each person with a spiritual remedy based on the place where the person's soul was rooted. So Rebbe Nachman would look in to see where your soul was rooted, and from there he'd be able to find you whatever tikkun that you personally needed. There were many things he told us to do. These did not involve deep intentions or the unification of the transcendental worlds through Yehudim. The things he told those close to him to do were simple acts. And we know that Rebbe Nachman, he emphasized so much about just doing simple acts and connecting to simple Torah, mitzvos, and munah in just a pasha, straightforward, simple way. The Rebbe told his followers not to fast at all unless he prescribed it. He might tell one person to fast at certain intervals. To another, he might prescribe undertaking a fast from Shabbos to Shabbos. To others, he would say that once a week they should stay awake one night and abstain from eating animal products for 24 hours. There were many whom the Rebbe told to fast on the day before Rosh Chodesh. He also told most of his followers to be careful to immerse in the mikvah on days associated with festivity. When Tachanan, the penitential prayers, are not said, the Rebbe told many people to study 18 chapters of Mishnah every day. The Rebbe prescribed many courses of study, a different one for each person. So the Rebbe would look into the person's neshama, and he would tell them the specific thing they needed. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes it was a seder of learning, sometimes it was mikvah. There were all different prescriptions that he was pulling down from higher places. I want to just bring in a different sikha quickly. So this is from Sichot HaRan 67, where Rebbe Nachman really talks about advice. One who ignores the words of the wise can go mad. The main reason people are mad is because they refuse to follow good advice. Right? Rebbe Nachman's teaching us, like, follow good advice. Think about even yourself. Like, you could look at a person and be like, I know exactly what you need to do to get out of this bind or to help you move forward in life. But people don't always listen. And Rebbe Nachman's saying here, like, a person should, not saying you should boss people around, but I'm just saying we could all relate to, like, somebody who we know who, like, if they would have just listened, If a madman were to listen to sane people, he would definitely not behave like a madman. His madness might convince him that he needs to go about in torn clothing and roll in the dirt, but if he were to follow the advice of one of greater intelligence who tells him that this is unnecessary, his madness would disappear. The root of madness lies in not wanting to listen to the words of the wise. Understand this well. So I love this last line, right? The root of madness. Like, what is madness? Madness is actually not wanting to listen to good advice. And Rebbe Nachman gave lots and lots of good advice, and he was trying to teach his Hasidim and teach all of us how to be in this world, especially nowadays, I think. But okay, so I'm going back into Sichot HaRan 185. There was one course of study, however, that was prescribed for all: the daily study of the Shulchan Aruch. The Rebbe said that even when a person has no time, he should still study at least one law in the Shulchan Aruch each day, no matter where that law might be. He said that this is an important obligation for every Jew. So Rebbe Nachman said that, so Rebbe Nachman is saying that there was, even though Rebbe Nachman gave very specific eitzas to certain people at certain times, there was one thing that he said that's a constant, and that's to study Shulchan Aruch every single day. And Rebbe Nachman says that, I've actually heard that Rebbe Nachman says, like, you could take Likutei Moharan and you could take all my Torahs and you could translate them any way you want and think about what they mean in any way you want, but you cannot be over one halacha in Shulchan Aruch. Rebbe Nachman was very into learning halacha each day. I'm just going to bring us into Sichot HaRan 29, just to emphasize this a bit more. The Rebbe constantly stressed for us the importance of studying the codes of religious law. He emphasized this more than any other study. So more than any other study, Rebbe Nachman spoke about studying Shulchan Aruch every day. It is best to study all 4 sections of the Shulchan Aruch in order from beginning to end. If you can also study its major commentaries, all the better. If not, you should at least cover the codes with the shorter commentaries. The study is a great spiritual remedy. Through sin, good and evil become mixed up. A legal opinion provides for a clear separation between the valid and invalid, the permitted and the forbidden, the pure and the impure. When you study religious law, good is purified and is once again separated from evil. So why? So Rebbe Nachman says that studying Shulchan Aruch is a great spiritual remedy. And tomorrow is actually going to be Rosh Chodesh Adar. So I actually feel, Adar we know is Safek. It has the same gematria. No, sorry. Amalek has the same gematria as Safek, that was Haman. And Safek means doubt. And that's it. We live in this world of doubt. And Rebbe Nachman saying here, how do you clarify, between what's right and wrong? So actually, this is the remedy. Shulchan Aruch Halacha is the remedy of how to clarify between right and wrong, between good and bad, valid and invalid. It's very powerful, and I'm sure it'd even be more powerful if before we learn Halacha. By the way, a lot of Breslovers say just to learn a Halacha a day. Not, of course, Rebbe Nachman is prescribing Shulchan Aruch, but for some of us, it's harder to learn Shulchan Aruch than others, and I think even a lot of Breslover mashpiyim say just learning a halacha sefer every day, which they make so easy now. By the way, they have 3 minutes of Lashon Hara, 3 minutes of Hilchos Shabbos, 3 minutes a day. There's so many great stuff out there. But anyways, so just to get back, so Rebbe Nachman is saying here that I think even if we would, before we learn a halacha, to just take a moment and have in mind, I'm learning this in order to clarify between good and evil, or to clarify between right and wrong. I think that would even take our learning halacha so much further, and we'd be able to see the truth so much better. This past Shabbos was Mishpatim also. So 2 weeks ago was Matan Torah, and it was this high parsha, right? With literally the Jewish people's soul left their body when they were receiving the Torah, because it was so intense to see and hear Hashem, and it was such a high spiritual awakening. And then the next Shabbos is, boom, Mishpatim. Like, now we're just going to get to all the laws. There's tons of laws in Mishpatim, tons of halachos. And, like, that's what it is. Like, the two have to go together. They say that the Torah is written with white and black, right? And the white represents, like, this airiness and this openness. And I like to think of it as, like, spirituality and finding your deeper self and finding Hashem in all these places. And, like, but then there's the black. There's the halacha. There's, like, the intensity, I guess, and the, all jokes aside, like, this is what needs to be done. And you need both. Like, you can't have the black without the white, and you can't have the white without the black. And at the same time, it's like, even, if a Torah is together and two letters are put together, or two letters are touching, then the Torah is puzzle, like, because it needs that white in between. So we need both, And I think Rebbe Nachman, like, he very much is forever trying to show us the balance of both. And he's saying, like, you could take my Torahs and make them mean whatever you want them to mean and do whatever you want them to do, but, like, don't be over any halachos in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, going back into Sichot HaRan 185. Another practice that he universally prescribed, this is another one, this is like a constant here, was for us to seclude ourselves in prayer each day, Hisbodedut. He told us to express our thoughts before Hashem and ask that he have mercy and allow us to achieve true devotion. This secluded prayer was to be in the language we normally spoke. This is already discussed at length in the Rebbe's printed works. Right? So that's the second thing that Rebbe Nachman really prescribed over and over again was Hisbodedut. I'm just going to read it. I'm going to bring in a different piece, Sichot HaRan 68. Okay. The Rebbe often spoke to us about conversing with Hashem. Speak to Hashem so as to focus on your purpose in life. Have pity on yourself and beg Hashem to help you find him. Use whatever language you speak best and argue with Hashem, petitioning him in every way. All these thoughts are brought in the Rebbe's published works, but beyond this, he would frequently discuss this most important concept. If you set aside a time each day, at least an hour, to converse with Hashem, you will surely be worthy of drawing close to him. You may do this for days and years, apparently without effects, but in the end, it will help you reach your goal. So Rebbe Nachman's saying here, like, speak to Hashem. Speak to Hashem for an allotted time a day, and petitioning him in any way to come close to him, beg him to come close to him, argue with him to come close to him. And I love that Rebbe Nachman says this too, because anyone who's really been practicing Hisbodedut knows what this is like. Like, sometimes it feels like you're getting nowhere. Like, you're getting nowhere with Hisbodedut. You're just sitting there, your mind goes blank half the time. The other time you're trying your best and, maybe, but, like, you're not really, like, brushing on you're not really, like, touching on, like, all this deep stuff that you hoped you would be. But Rebbe Nachman's saying, like, it might apparently, without effect, but in the end, it will help you reach your goal. Like, it might look that way, but for real, you are touching on something important. Rebbe Nachman continues in the Sichot HaRan piece, I'm just going to read it outside, that's really how David HaMelech wrote all the Tehillim. He would just climb into his bed at night, put the covers over his head, and boom, the whole Sefer. I mean, I'm sure not boom, I'm sure it took many years, but that's how Sefer Tehillim was written. So, like, really you could access, like, such, it just goes to show how you can access such deep, amazing things through Hisbodedut. I was actually listening to a shiur from Rav Shlomo Katz, and he said the most amazing thing. He said, the song, Kol Halam Kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od, V'ha'ikar Lo Yitzpached Klal. So, basically, the whole world, it's from Likutei Moharan, the whole world is like a narrow bridge. And the main thing is not to make yourself afraid. So I'm going to not go into what the make yourself afraid is. But in other words, don't bug yourself out about the anxiety you have. Kind of just accept it. But I'll go into that another time, maybe. But Rav Shlomo Katz was saying, like, from Likutei Halachos, what's Gesher? Gesher is truth. And Gesher is the bridge. Like, so this narrow bridge, like, how are you going to get across this narrow bridge. And the only way to do that is through truth. And the only way to get to that truth is through Hisbodedut, like sitting alone by yourself every day and having that time to think and having that time to process, like, why did this trigger me? What's my goal in life? Where am I headed? Where have I gone? Where have I been? All of this is like that's the gesher, that's the truth, and this process, like it happens during Hisbodedut. Okay, so we should all be matzliach in it. Okay, so I just want to take us further into this piece, back into 185. The Rebbe would specify various practices for each person. He would also change these practices even for a single individual. For example, the Rebbe might first tell a person to study 18 chapters of Mishnah each day. After a while, the Rebbe would exempt him from this and prescribe some new practice. Later on, he would assign these practices. So Rebbe Nachman was always switching up the avodas for the person, depending on what they needed at the time. This is how the Rebbe acted towards his followers. He would tell one person to recite a particular verse daily, while another would be told to study a certain Mishnah every day. The Rebbe would look at the root of a man's soul and prescribe the practice that was necessary to correct each blemish. Each person required a specific practice. So again, this was all, he would look into their soul and decide what they needed. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. There were other practices that he prescribed for all his followers, as discussed earlier. Still, other practices were prescribed for many people. Others were specific for particular individuals. The same was true in regard to time. There were some practices that the Rebbe prescribed for a person's entire lifetime. An example was the study of the Shulchan Aruch, while the Rebbe clearly told us to study every day of our lives. In other cases, the Rebbe prescribed a certain practice for a given period of time and then substituted another routine. So even though he would prescribe one thing, sometimes he'd be like, okay, enough of that, now move on to this. In other cases, the Rebbe prescribed, most of the practices prescribed by the Rebbe seemed very simple. However, they were all prescribed on the basis of awesome hidden mysteries and were very far from simple in their effect. So even though these avodas sometimes seemed simple, no biggie, like Rebbe Nachman is saying, like, they were pulled from like the deepest of places, and they had the most hidden mysteries in it, and they were and even though they were simple in act, in their effect, they were much, much deeper. But the Rebbe did not reveal any of these mysteries to us. He simply prescribed a routine and did what was necessary with it. The Rebbe said, everything I prescribe is beneficial and a remedy for the past and for the future, as well as after death in the Messianic age, during the resurrection and in the world to come. No matter how simple the Rebbe's advice might seem, now I love this part, tune in, okay? How simple the Rebbe's advice might seem, in practice, it was always very difficult. It might involve a simple act, but it would be complicated by a host of distractions and frustrations. I mean, I think many of us could attest to this, right? Like, Rebbe Nachman is saying here, like, even though the advice seems simple, for some reason, like, once the Rebbe prescribed it, it seemed like it was impossible to do. I mean, I think that's, like, so obvious. Like, how hard is it to just, like, learn one halacha a day? Or how hard is it to just talk to Hashem in your own words? I'm not talking about setting aside a time for an hour, just reminding yourself to, like, have Hashem on your mind, you know, and talk to him at some point in the day, 5 minutes, anything. But because, like, we know, because it was prescribed this way, it's, like, impossible. It's, like, not impossible, but as Rebbe Nachman says, like, tons of distractions and frustrations. Had the Rebbe not prescribed it, it would have been a most simple matter. But the fact that it was prescribed by him made it a most difficult task. Still, the Rebbe's followers always heeded his advice. They knew that it was most difficult and would involve great struggles. They would make use of prayer, begging Hashem to help them fulfill these holy practices. And here's the thing, Rebbe Nachman is saying, like, when you're struggling with these things, you beg Hashem to help you fulfill these practices. Like, as you're sitting there in Hisbodedut, be like, Hashem, help me say words of truth. Like, help me get to that place, because if I'm on my own, I'm not making it, you know? In the end, Hashem helped them, and they were able to succeed. I heard the Rebbe say explicitly, everything I prescribe becomes very difficult. Those who were close to the Rebbe were able to see this. Throughout his entire life, he never had any respite, even for an instant. And when you learn about Rebbe Nachman's life, it's true. Like he never had any breaks. Like personally, he pushed himself to his limits always. And on top of that, like he had so much opposition at the same time. He waged Hashem's battles every second of the day. It is impossible to go into further detail for many reasons, but this was why he encountered such great opposition. Still, Hashem helped him, and he was able to use his opposition to elevate himself. So he took this opposition that was always against him, and he used it to make himself greater. Every instant of every day, he lifted himself to new heights and attainments, the lights of which the world has never seen nor heard. Even today, there are many obstacles in the path of the one who studies the Rebbe's sacred works. There are many obstacles following these eitzos, right? Even if you know about the Rebbe, you want to study his works, you will still encounter many obstacles. You can actually see the many difficulties and frustrations, for the light is still hidden and eclipsed. Like everything is still, like it says here, the light is still hidden and eclipsed. Like it's not obvious, like if we knew all the remedies for everything, all the mitzvahs, not just Rebbe Nachman's eitzos, were prescribed, like we wouldn't budge, but it's like we have to have emunah in all of this, have emunah in the Tzaddik, have emunah in Torah and mitzvahs, have emunah in ourselves. We need all of this. So I want to give us a bracha that we should get stronger in Hisbodedut and in keeping Halacha and connecting to Torah and connecting to mitzvos until the coming of Mashiach. So thank you so much for listening, and if you liked it, please share it. Okay, thank you.